Hi. Hello. Hi, my name is Prima. So like Amazon Prime, Optimus Prime, Prime Rib, I have all sorts of nicknames. And I'm going to start with my background. So my career has been pretty non-linear, and I've been mostly in engineering, including a stint at the New York Times, where I actually worked with both Nicholas and Fernando. And I've also done UX design, and I'm now currently a product manager at a startup in manufacturing. So today I'm here to make a case for when and why to skip prototyping and to learn to get comfortable with releasing really imperfect software so that we can learn from our users as soon as possible and to make data-driven decisions. Now before I continue, I'm going to caveat saying, I'm not saying that prototyping is bad and that you're wrong for doing it, because I still use it. But there may be a time where you would want to consider something different, and I'm asking you to have an open mind to see whether or not this could work for you. So again, like I mentioned before, prototyping has its place. I still use it, but the thing I'm about to present to you is for a certain set of conditions. And the first is, this is for people who have already established a product. So if you have product market fit already, and you have some users, and you have a rhythm of getting to release things, certainly go for this. Also, if you are either time constrained or constrained with resources, I know a lot of designers, you are all asked to context switch between 6 different things at once, and you may not have enough time to do good testing. Maybe consider this as well. So I'm about to walk through some real-world examples that I went through throughout my entire career, where we either were forced to not prototype and just skip to releasing software, or where the team has over time organically developed a system where we didn't need to do prototyping. So first, this is from early in my career, and because of that, I had no photos or videos of it, so I asked Midjourney to create the image for me. But I worked at a marketing agency where we made interactive experiences for our clients at trade shows and conferences. And one of my first early projects was for a pharmaceutical company called Bristol Myers Squibb, and they were marketing a hepatitis B vaccine, and my agency made a Dance Dance Revolution game. This really existed, I'm not making this up, where you stomped on the bees to combat hepatitis. And I don't know if any of you worked in the agency world. A lot of times you don't have a lot of time to do stuff, so we didn't have the luxury of doing lots of research or prototyping or testing with people before launching it. We would just have to build it and put it on the road. And so my job was also to go on the road and install the Dance Dance Revolution game, tell people use it. But oftentimes when we released these things, we had no clue whether or not our users would like it or if they even knew how to use it. And we also knew for sure that it had tons of bugs. So again, I was young in my career and I went on the road. But the thing is though, over time, so this is what would happen. People would try to use it, and I noticed what they can and can't do, and I would try to fix it that night. So over time, as we went from city to city, I iterated the project, and it improved over time. So we didn't do upfront testing, but the testing sort of happened in real time. And the key takeaway here is you can release imperfect stuff if you're willing to fix it fast and to communicate that you're going to fix it fast. So that's my advice. The other thing is, I was the only person from the team that made it that would go on the road with this stuff, and my designer wasn't with me. But because the design and developer team worked so closely together, because it's hardware and software, we would literally sit across from a table and think out loud and argue stuff. And because of that, I understood the design intent of the designer, and I was able, even though I wasn't a designer at the time, I was able to at least honor their intent and to make fixes to the Dance Dance Revolution game. So that's one example. Next, I'm going to go over T-Brand Studio, which I think Nicholas presented, and I actually worked alongside both Nicholas and Fernando here. So I know someone asked a question about tools, and I'm going to lift the curtain on the tooling part. And before I do that, I just want to say this is not my work. This is a collective effort from both the design and development team, and they're so talented, so give a shout out to them. And so yeah, we made brand content on the New York Times platform, and basically they're articles that have really, in terms of brand content, top notch, top quality. So good work, guys. But the way we were doing it in the early days was pretty old-fashioned waterfall, like, oh, let's make some static mocks, and I'm going to give it to the client, and then they're going to approve it, and then they're going to give it to a developer, and they're going to make it, and then we do manual QA and so forth. So it was pretty lengthy and like pretty old-school waterfall. And in the early days, it was like chaos, but over time, when we made more and more of these branded content pieces, both the design and development team developed a common language of like elements on the page or interactions or just things that we knew we were going to use over and over again. And during this time too, like the demand for the brand content like literally doubled, and we were being asked to do it in like half the time, but we couldn't hire more people. So the team, not I as a leader or any other person as a leader, they came up with a way to scale this on their own. So what they came up with was a way to take these like common elements that you see here, and our lead engineer, Joe Coleman, he pioneered a like component library made of React components. And this is when React was like super hot. And he worked alongside with the whole design team to have a design system and a whole like responsive like layout system. And basically they made a bunch of React components with like custom properties that they knew that they could customize and look and feel of. So over time they amassed this collection of React components, but the developers were still like assembling these React components for each of the pages. So at some point, one of our developers, David, who he's here talking about the tool he made, he got sick and tired of it. He's like, I'm an engineer, I don't want to be doing this forever and ever. So he wanted to make a tool, a custom tool, that would allow a designer to assemble these components on the page without any help from the developer whatsoever, and to allow the designer to literally push the button and it would publish to the New York Times. So he made this thing called Composer. And so you can see here on the left, this is the design system and the component library. And on the right, this is the tool that he made. And again, he worked alongside the design team the entire time. Like, I remember you guys were sitting literally next to him, right? And he was like showing you the code, and like in real time, you guys made it together. So on the right is the system that we call Composer, and it's pretty crude, but it works. I think we did it really fast, and it was great. And because of us making the system and like bypassing a lot of the developer time, we were able to just cut out a lot of the steps. So no more static mocks. The designers just literally went into the tool and made it themselves. And because our component library was QA'd in advance, we didn't have to do any sort of QA. So we just sped up the development time, and just it was great. The designers also were able to be more expressive with the look and feel of stuff and animations. And I think we made another tool, right? It was called the scrolling tool. What was it? Was it the animation? I can't remember. Body moving. That's what it was called. Yeah. Yeah. David also made a tool where you can do scroll-based animation. And again, he, side by side with the designers, they made this custom tool together and they were able to do it. And the last example I want to show is my current company. I work at Prima Labs. It's a startup in the beauty manufacturing space. So if you want to launch a beauty brand, come to Prima Labs. Basically, my team was a tiny team. I have one UX designer, I'm the product manager, and we have 3 engineers. And we have built a platform for beauty brands to launch their own products. And again, over time, taking the lessons I learned from the New York Times and my agency experience, I encouraged the design and development team to sort of come together and come up with a common language, component library design system. And on their own, our designer Olivia and one of the engineers, they sort of developed a new technique where we call it pair programming, pair designing, where instead of Olivia making an entire prototype in Figma and annotating it and handing it off to an engineer, she would do a first pass in Figma, and we would get an engineer to sort of live code, and drawing from the library, he would lay out a page, and she would define the interactivity, and they would do it together in real time, and she would have him do the first UX pass of whether or not it's usable for usability. So I think another great technique as well. And again, so if you are interested in this, you're thinking, oh, how can we do this? I have to say it's not an overnight thing. All of the examples I showed you were over like a year or so of both developer, design, and product working together side by side and making decisions together. So it's definitely not something you can do overnight. It's a long-term investment. And if you want to put into action, again, because each team is unique and has unique needs, it's not going to look like this, but here are some of the examples of tactics that can come out of this sort of collaboration. But the key here is design, product, the data, and engineering have to work together and have that agreement. And so some examples are the design system, having like a matching component library for the front end. In terms of engineering, getting really good at A/B testing or having feature flags, and then doing lots of rollbacks, because you will, release really bad software sometimes. And then from a product perspective, just having like lots of stakeholder buy-in, because a lot of people are not comfortable with this sort of style of working. So as a product person, I have to convince our stakeholders that we can and should work like this. And the benefits overall, I think, are to destroy the whole waterfall methodology. Again, to tighten that product triad between design, product, and engineering. And then finally, the last two benefits are reducing what I call debt. I don't like the term technical debt because it makes it seem like it only belongs to engineers and developers, and that's not true. Anytime you see technical debt, there is a huge component of design and product debt as well, and it has implications for all three. So overall, let's call it debt and not technical debt anymore. And then lastly, when you do release software in this sort of fashion, you can do more evidence-based practice where you can get real data and not just have people's subjective opinions influence your designs. Just show them the data and they can't argue with it there. So that's it. Thank you. Questions? Or if you want to eat lunch, go. I'm not going to, yes.
Hi, it was a great presentation. Thank you so much. I had a question regarding one of the last slides that you showed at Prima Matter about the designer just makes the first pass and then gives to the developer.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you make sure that the designer communicates the entire interaction to the developer before even making those mockups in Prima?
So the question is, I didn't make this clear. So Olivia will do a first pass in Figma, and then she'll get onto like a Teams meeting and explain to the engineer, this is the intent, or this is what I want. And usually, you do like annotations and then you hand it off. Instead of doing that, she would just talk to the engineer in real time and tell them, like, instead of having to do the annotation. So it's just displacing time and making sure that they're doing it together. So yeah, that's how it's different. Yeah. So they have a conversation basically. That's pretty much it. Yeah. Yes?
So it seems like this is a good process to fix usability issues, but how are you ensuring that without doing usability testing with real audiences and real participants that you're still getting to the meat and the goals of the site point, I guess? Or that you're still accomplishing user goals without talking to users?
Yes, so that's a great question. So as a product manager, you do define the goals and the metrics that you want to keep. And my answer to that is you just do it. And you cross your fingers. And I find that people are very uncomfortable with that concept because they think that they are going to be wrong. But the thing is, though, you have to trust your instinct to know that you have designed something that will kind of like meet the goals. But you just have to demonstrate willingness and have tools where you're able to fix it or to address issues quickly. So again, I know it's a very different way of working, but you just have to have a leap of faith in yourself and think that you're not going to have a total flop, but it's not going to be exactly what you think either. So yeah. Anything else? Oh, next.
How do you ensure you have methods for feedback?
Oh, for user feedback? Yeah. So when we released our software here, we have lots of we use Amplitude to measure interactivity. But as a product manager, I still conduct interviews with our customers as well. I'll intercept someone and I'll ask them interviews. So same methodology, just doing it after we release and not before. So yeah. Okay, anything else? Yep, Fernanda.
Do you think maybe coding got easier to produce
Yes.
than it was in the past?
Definitely.
And that's kind of why high fidelity prototypes, it might be a waste of time because you might be spending the same time, amount of time that you would like coding.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly, and that's what we found out with the New York Times too. Like, if you do like component-based libraries and code that's already like pre-QA, you guys can assemble it together and not have to like, go through the engineer. But I think the overall triad here is coming closer and closer together, and what you think your job is is not going to be the same in like 4 years or 30 years. Like either the designer has to code, or you have to be an engineer that understands product. But if I were you, I would learn all the skill sets here if you want to be viable in the marketplace. So yeah. Anything else? Cool. Thank you so much.